Season 14 is a month away and there are a ton of changes on the PBE. As a Viego main myself, I went ahead and played about 50 games on the PBE to test out what items are going to be good, how Viego will function in the new map, and pretty much all the changes that you guys are going to need to know. Just a disclaimer that everything I'm going to talk about is subject to change. The release of Season 14 is still a month away, and while most things will remain the same, there can totally be balance changes that affect what I say now. However, if history is to repeat itself, most things on the PBE will release to the live servers regardless of how broken they are. No hate to Riot, that's just how it goes. First thing I'll talk about is the obvious item changes. First major change is the removal of mythic items, which is a long-awaited change that I think will improve the quality of the game as a whole. I won't go into the mythic change itself too much, but I will talk about some key items to look out for. Kraken Slayer is still an amazing item and will likely continue to be your first item going into next season. Noon Quiver is great for tempo, and with Blade of the Ruined King receiving a nerf, Kraken Slayer comes out on top. With that being said, while Bork will be 100 gold cheaper, it is unfortunately having its 3-hit passive removed. Instead of hitting the enemy 3 times and stealing their move speed as well as doing damage, Bork has been changed to slow the enemy on the first hit, dealing no extra damage. For some champions, the instant slow may be nice, but since Viego pretty much procced Bork instantly anyways, the change will be a nerf for him. Triforce will continue to be a must buy on Viego, especially when you consider that Divine Sunder, the Sheen item, has been removed. Triforce is the only Sheen item worth purchasing. It hasn't changed much outside of some item component changes, and will remain one of Viego's best items. Speaking of Divine Sunder, it has been replaced by a new item called Sundered Sky. Sundered Sky is effectively just Divine Sunder without it being a Sheen item. Basically, your first attack against an enemy champion will crit and heal you based on your base AD and missing health. This item provides a lot of burst when paired with a Sheen proc item, as well as a very noticeable amount of sustain. Continuing with the new items, we have Terminus. Terminus is one of the most interesting items that Riot is adding in Season 14, and I'll briefly go over why it is strong. Terminus gives your auto attacks an additional 30 magic damage on hit, while having an additional passive called Juxtaposition. Each auto attack alternates, giving you a stack of light and then dark. Light autos give you a stack of armor and MR, while dark autos give you a stack of armor and magic pen. Since Viego has the ability to double auto attack with his passive, he's able to stack this item pretty quickly, similar to how he stacks Black Cleaver. Additionally, you can't build Terminus and Black Cleaver, so you have to choose between one or the other. It'll be a pretty big choice in Season 14. Black Cleaver will make you tankier, but Terminus is definitely going to do more damage. Experimental Hexblade is one that a lot of Viego mains are excited about, and while I think it has potential, I struggle to see where it fits in. Basically, you gain ultimate ability haste, and every time you ult, you gain attack speed and movement speed for a short period of time. This also works on your ults from possessions. The item also builds out of Noon Quiver, which is interesting, but Kraken Slayer outperforms it as a first item, so there really isn't that much appeal in building it early on. I can see this being a late game purchase as 4th or 5th item if you don't need armor pen or something more tanky. If Hexblade ends up being a good first item, I'll be sure to let you guys know. Now let's get into some situational items. Wit's End is a much cooler item now for Viego because while it no longer gives AD, it gives even more magic resist and now gives you tenacity. The introduction of tenacity to Wit's End makes it an even more situational but far more useful item in games where the enemy team has a bunch of CC. Additionally, Eclipse is now an option for Viego because Eclipse is no longer a lethality item. Eclipse gives a ton of AD and has a 3-hit passive that does % HP damage and grants you a shield, similar to what it does on live. This paired with Triforce is an insane amount of burst and could be great in games where you can prioritize building damage. Now some items you may be curious about, like the new Rageblade or Hydra items. Rageblade no longer limits your crit, and so a lot of Viego mains are wondering if this item will be viable for Viego. And unfortunately, I don't think so. In order to make use of Rageblade, you need to auto a ton, and even though Viego is an auto attack based champion, the majority of his damage comes from burst. I also tried the new Hydra items and have some thoughts. Ravenous Hydra has its active again, which I was super excited to try out, until I realized that it's not an auto attack reset. Pressing Ravenous Hydra's active was just a straight up DPS loss. I don't understand what the point of the item is, to be honest, and I'm wondering if they'll address it before Season 14 comes out. If Ravenous Hydra's active was an auto attack reset, it might have a place. Also, there's the new Lethality Hydra item, and while the damage feels nice overall, Viego simply just has better items to choose from. There's some great tank choices to round out your build, and these are all purely situational, so I won't go into too many of them, but I will show you my favorites. First is this MS Paint looking item, Kanik Rukern, if I pronounce that right, which essentially just gives you a ton of MR and a gigantic magic resist shield. Additionally, being able to build Jockshow as a late game item is amazing because Viego often builds 2 to 3 items with health but no resistances, and Jockshow gives both armor and MR. I'm not a fan of any of the pure armor item choices, but Deadman's Plate is always an option. Okay, with all the items out of the way, let's talk about how Viego fits into the new map changes. One of the first things you'll notice is that the map is more open. Mid lane is wider, and the new wall layout gives more space to top and bot lane. This should theoretically make ganking more difficult for most junglers. However, Viego is a champion that actually benefits from some of these map changes, because it allows his mist to get behind the enemy laner more easily. With the lanes being more open, laners are more vulnerable if you can actually get behind them. It's just harder to get behind them in general with most champions. Overall, ganking will be more difficult for Viego, but it will be that way for most junglers. The point here is that it will hurt Viego less than it will hurt a lot of other junglers, making it an actual buff for Viego. Another tip is that tower diving is easier across the board because there are a lot more ways to attack a dive now than before. Viego is a decent tower diver, so if you know what you're doing, this will benefit you a lot. One of the key changes that has been made to the map is the addition of the void grubs, or spermlings as my chat likes to call them. Basically, at 5 minutes, 3 void grubs will spawn, and killing each one will grant your team a permanent stacking buff that increases your damage to structures. After 5 minutes of killing those 3 more will spawn, giving you the potential to have a maximum of 6 stacks. If you have at least 5 stacks, you will spawn little spermlings when hitting a turret similar to Bel'Veth. I bring this up because these are going to be a massive focus of junglers early game in Season 14, meaning Viego will need to be good at taking them. In my experience, Viego actually takes them relatively slow due to his single target. However, Viego is definitely a champ strong enough to fight for them, especially if you have help from your solo laners. Additionally, Viego is someone that can use that stacking buff very well, and getting a bunch of these stacks will unlock the ability to split push more reliably. If you're someone who likes to split push mid to late game on Viego, these void grubs will be a huge priority for you. One final thing that I want to look you guys in the eyes when I say, stopwatch is removed. There are some stopwatch items, like they made it so Seeker's Arm Guard now costs 1600 gold and is technically stopwatch. Stopwatch is much more expensive and a lot harder to come by, and honestly, do I need to say anything more? Like, us Viego mans, we know how annoying stopwatch is, and honestly, that in and of itself just makes Viego like 1 to 2% better. Just straight up. All right, now with that being said, I will give you my summary on my experience testing Viego on the PBE. I think Viego, in all honesty, will be in a much better spot next season. I think the removal of mythics will offer Viego a lot more build diversity than he currently is experiencing, as well as just the entire game a lot more build diversity. The new items that are being introduced synergize very well with him. Mages and tanks are looking pretty overpowered right now though on the PBE, so depending on how the balancing is at the start of the season, we may need a couple patches before Viego's strength is truly revealed. However, I haven't been this excited for the future of Viego in a long time, and I hope you guys are excited to venture forth into Season 14 with me. Lastly, I just want to thank everyone who's new to the channel. The channel is growing like crazy. We have a lot of new people coming in from the shorts or whatever you're coming in for. I just want to thank you guys for being here. I don't always make educational content, but I do always make Viego content, and I hope that if you guys are subscribing or watching that you guys enjoy what I have to offer, and I'm really glad to have you guys here. Also, I do stream every day on Twitch, so if you guys do want to stop by, it's twitch.tv/LolElekktro. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys are excited about Viego in Season 14, and until next time, see ya.